Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So before starting, I will share the screen. All right. So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Transform Your Business with AI. We are really pleased that you decided to join us for this session, which will be full of insights. We will discuss the critical role of a robust data and technology foundation to leverage the full potential of AI. We will also share with you some crucial technical knowledge to ensure a successful Agentforce deployment. Today, I'm joined by a motivated team of presenters from Merkel, each bringing an extensive experience and technical know-how about Salesforce technology and data solutions. First, we also would like to take a moment to congratulate our 1,000+ colleagues who have achieved the Agentforce certification. This is really an impressive milestone, so we are really happy to celebrate that. And of course, we want to thank our customers who decided to partner with us for their Agentforce transformation journey. But before we begin, I'd like to mention that this webinar is part of a series. In our previous episode, we explored how Agentforce can revolutionize your customer experience to unlock the business growth. If you are interested and want to learn more about it, you can find the video on our YouTube video channel under the Merkel Dar channel. So, all right, today's agenda. We will cover fundamental topics, starting with Agentforce use cases presented by my colleague Daniel. Following that, I will explain how Data Cloud is enhancing the agent potential. Noor will then delve into the data readiness key topic, detailing its critical role as the foundation for successful AI solutions. We will also introduce you to our approach, our accelerator, which support a streamlined data readiness process. And finally, we'll wrap up this presentation with a Q&A session to answer any pending questions. So let's get started. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. So then, before jumping into the agent for use cases, that is the main target, I want to take a few minutes to explain the technologies behind it, especially the large language models that Agentforce relies on and how it uses them responsibly. I'm aware that many of the people of the audience are going to already be aware of those concepts, but I just want to solidify the technology foundation and hopefully that it do it in a illustrative way. And yeah, for that I'm going to use a parrot. Please pass. It's not refreshing. There you go. So let's speak about what an LLM, a large language model, is. You can imagine it as a super intelligent parrot that has read through the entire internet, and it knows how to speak about it. It doesn't truly understand what it says, like a parrot, but it's very good at predicting what words go together based on the patterns that it learned while it was reading the internet. It works mainly with two things: the brain that it developed, that is shaped on like a bunch of probability matrices that are called weights, and the prompt from the user and what it has been said in a conversation so far. So then looking at the example that we're looking at in the slide, the user asks, do platypuses have teeth? And then the parrot answers, adult platypuses don't have teeth. So it's very important to know that the parrot doesn't know what a platypus is. It doesn't know what teeth are. It just has identified adult platypuses don't have teeth as there's most likely sentence that comes after what it has been given. That is the question. So this is a very important point because it is difficult to trace back where that knowledge comes back. And with the example that I'm giving now, it will be more clear. You can go. to the next one. Takes time to change slide. So
Yes. Is it
here,
okay?
yeah, it's good. Let's look at what happens here. So Peter Schmidt asks the parrot, can you update my address? I live now in Parrotstrasse 3. And then the parrot says, sure, I updated it in your customer profile. And sometime later, Zoe Garcia asks the parrot, I'm looking for a kit for my friend Peter Schmidt. Can you give me ideas? And the parrot is calculating the most probable answer. And if it learned the information about Peter, it might be that it finds the most likely thing to say. It seems he moved recently to Parrotstrasse 3. What about something cozy for his apartment? What is is a liability? If the parrot lets that information, you cannot really control when it's going to spit it out, because usually everyone is speaking to the same parrot. So we have to, like, trust layers are meant for this kind of situation not to happen. Information about customer, private information, has to be completely opaque for the parrot, but we still appreciate the capability of the parrot to speak. So right now I'm going to jump into the next example in which I'm going to explain you how Salesforce, Agentforce, stands between the parrot and the user. You can pass now the slide. And handles the communication with the parrot. So there's a lot of things ongoing in this slide. Yeah, please bear with me, because in 3 steps we see how the information is being masked, the information is being executed, and the information is being enriched. So on the top left, we see the first prompt from Peter Smith, that is the same as before. Can you update my address? I live now in Parrotstrasse 3. Now, Peter Smith is not speaking with the parrot, speaking with Agentforce. So step 1, Agentforce captures the input from Peter Smith and then prepares a prompt that includes the input from Peter Smith, but is changed. In what way? First, it has added some Agentforce instructions. So here is telling the parrot what its role is, what tone it has to use when it speaks, what are the actions that it can execute in the context of this conversation, and some extra information that Node will go into detail later. Then it adds information about the customer, so it gives information about the contact ID, the first name, the last name, and then the request of the customer. But with a key part, that is the information, the personal information is masked. So here you say that it says redacted ID, redacted first name, redacted last name. Here is an example. Basically what Agentforce does in real life, it just generates random strings, but it keeps track of those text labels and it translates back and forth so that the parrot never sees the real information from Peter. And it is different in every single conversation that is open. So then in step 1, the prompt is prepared, is given away for the parrot, and the parrot, because of the instructions that it has received, has identified that there's an action that can be triggered. That is the action update contact address, and it takes 2 parameters. So this is the way for the parrot to tell Agentforce, please execute this action, because this is the intent of the user. In step 2, the Agentforce has executed the action. It tells the parrot that everything was successful, it has been executed, and the parrot prepares the final answer for the user. That is, sure thing, redacted first name, I updated your address in your customer profile. And then in step 3, Agentforce unmasks the information that the parrot has used and gives back the answer to Peter Smith. So the parrot, the LLM, only sees masked data and never real customer information. But we could use the capability of the LLM to understand the user's intent, and Agentforce executed it. So these are 2 parts of the charts that you will see of the trust layer. This is data masking, and this is secure data retrieval, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, lots of information here, but illustrative, I hope. You can jump to the next one. There you go.
There is a little delay,
So
no? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, exactly. No, but it just takes 3 seconds. So RAG, that is a big concept in the LLM AI world, is a retrieval augmented generation. And you can think of it as not only the parrot, but also a small robot that checks information in a library. So in the example that we are looking here, can my landlord raise rent mid-lease? Now, before the parrot answers, there's a robot that goes to a library, reads the user's prompt, and searches knowledge regarding to the question that has been asked. And this knowledge can be articles, documents, or any text-based source that has been prepared for it, and brings the most relevant passages to the parrot before it answers. So when the parrot answers, it's not hallucinating, it's not taking information from its training, but is grounding the answer in real up-to-date information. How is this important? The parrot read the internet maybe in, well, like GPT 4.0, it's updated up to October 23, for example. So everything that happened after October 23, the parrot doesn't know about it. And is going to give information that is outdated or maybe wrong. But if we add this robot here and we feed the parrot the right information, we can give it information that is newer and relevant. And it doesn't have to be newer. It can also be private. Like, well, in the example that we're giving here, can my landlord raise rent mid-lease? The robot goes to the civil code, brings the information that is relevant for the parrot, and then the parrot gives the information about the latest status of the law that might have changed last week. So it reduces hallucinations, it exposes the parrot to information that might not have been exposed to, and it gives information that is up to date. So once we have understood LLMs and how Agentforce uses LLMs and what RAG is, you can jump into the next slide. So I'm going to use now a series of cases for a luxury watchmaker brand that offers a digital agent across multiple channels like WhatsApp or web chat. I'm giving 3 examples, and they go from a very public, safe kind of scenario to a very private scenario where customer data is hit and is used and is exposed. To see how Agentforce can adapt behavior depending on context, risk, and trust level. So here, the customer asks, what kind of battery does my Chronovex use? Chronovex assuming that is a model of watch of this brand. So this is a perfect example for RAG, the retrieval augmented generation that we spoke about. The LLM doesn't need to guess. It uses it to search the brand's manuals and documentation. So when the person makes this question, it can go to the instruction manual of that watch, read the passage, feed it to the parrot, and then the parrot gives information away. Now, this agent, a service agent, can receive this request on any channel. And because it doesn't affect customer data, it's just taking information that ideally is public, it can just give it away. No authentication required, and RAG, a good use case for RAG. Jump to the next one. So now we're stepping into semi-personalized territory. In this case, the customer is reaching out on WhatsApp, and it's able to recognize their phone number and match it to a known contact. That gives Agentforce access to their purchase history, but ideally nothing else. Why? So the person is reaching through WhatsApp, the number is matched, but we don't know who's really uh, using that phone to reach Agentforce, right? So the company can decide what is the information that they are comfortable exposing and using to handle the communication with this customer or with this person that is reaching out, and what actions is comfortable exposing. So here, what would it do? It would feed masked information about the purchase history to the parrot. The parrot identifies that it can offer 2 options for the action, either schedule a cleaning at the nearest boutique or send a prepaid shipping label to the email of the person. It's interesting because here it doesn't say, hello, Peter, because that would be exposing information in a situation where we don't know whether the person that is speaking to us is the person that is supposed to be. So yeah, level of authentication and trust scenarios depending on the context of the agent. Jump to the next one, please. So high trust interaction. A person has had the watch stolen while traveling and they don't know what to do. So here you'll see that Agentforce answers, first of all, I need to verify your identity to proceed. And please authenticate, right? So here the Parrot has, well, Agentforce and LLM has been instructed that for this scenario, it needs to first ask the customer to authenticate because we need to know that the person is who is supposed to be. And then when they have clicked the link or they have authenticated in the website, it engages with the customer and then it proposes actions. And it doesn't only propose actions, it tells the name, the purchase history with the date of purchase and the serial number. And then it proposes, do you want to disable the resale certification? And yeah, and it's important that it gives the serial number so the person identifies the watch. So even at this level of access, the LLM only receives mass data. It's an important point, this one. Things like first name or the serial number of the watch, it has placeholders. The Parrot is what it receives is placeholders. And then Agentforce translates it back. And then here we ensure that the action is scoped to the correct user and nothing else. So ideally, I mean, and this is my opinion, this action, for example, reporting the watch as stolen, is usually, if this is exposed in Agentforce, it usually is an action that is already implemented in the customer website. So when in the implementation of Agentforce, the company can see what are the actions that the customer can do themselves on their account page or that the customer service can do through their UI, and they can adapt them fairly easily with the Agentforce configuration. And you can consider it as a different channel, right? You can do actions on the phone, you can do actions on email, you can do actions on your account page, or here you can use a conversational experience that feels smooth and human-like, automated, while maintaining control of the data. So Agentforce can be configured to do all this. And yeah, that's the end of my speech because I wanted to just show the technologies behind, how it can be used, and how it's safe. Now I'm handing over to Stefan that is going to speak about how is this information stored.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was important to cover this topic, this core concept of the LLM and their impact as well, based on the data that we are manipulating, because this is, you know, a beautiful, an impressive piece of technology, but there is, of course, some preparation to do on the data to make sure that, you know, it empowered this LLM in the way that we want. So in this section, I will explain how, by leveraging the power of data cloud technology, we can basically maximize the potential of Agentforce. But first, what is data cloud? So some of you might already be familiar with data cloud. It's a core platform of Salesforce that enables the organization to seamlessly connect, prepare, and unify the data, creating a comprehensive and operational profile. As you can see on this diagram on the left part, that's where you will connect the different data sources that will help you, excuse me, I jumped already, that will help you to create a unified profile. This can be quite challenging to do if you are not using a platform such as Data Cloud, but the platform created some feature that will help you to do it even for non-technical users. This, of course, you know, will help you to create this, you know, one vision or one single source of truth for your users, and also being able to activate afterward this unified profile through different actions. So on the right, you'll see you have different way you would be able to leverage, the data that you unified to reach out to your customer and to deliver a seamless experience. So it's a core piece of technology from Salesforce that help you to create, a customer-centric profile and like a, an application as well that then you can activate. You can do that, of course, by unlocking, trapped data. So it's not only data that is structured, but you can also, download unstructured data. And data cloud will, thanks to its data modeling, and I will not go too much into the technicality of the solution, but it's also like extremely well developed through, different revolutionary piece of technology, such as, the vector database. And this will help you to merge internal and external data, allowing you to create this, comprehensive profile for both known and unknown audiences. So this holistic approach not only will help you to drive, real-time personalization, but it will also support predictive analytics and Gen AI use cases. How does it support generative AI landscape? Because data cloud is now is like a central piece of this ecosystem. Gen AI, as we saw before with Daniel, rely a lot on the data that you are feeding it. And by having this data well organized, but also really well secured, that's how you can ensure that you are getting the most out of the AI, technology. And Data Cloud integrated some really advanced and powerful, system to ensure, like such as the Einstein trust layer, to ensure that the data is secure, that you have, full control on the security, privacy, and ethical use of the data that you are feeding it to Data Cloud. So it's really an accelerator. It's something that really gonna empower your agent force to work, with in a secure system and with a much more seamless experience for you and your customers. So now I will hand it over to my colleague Noor, who will explain you how do we get there? How do we manage to feed a solution such as Data Cloud? And he will explain you a crucial step to get there. So Noor, over to you.
Yep, thanks, Steph. So we've seen a few use cases. We heard some context about LLMs, RAGs, and we've seen how the data cloud works within all of this. We have set the stage, and now we can set the narrative. We're going to talk about how we become data ready for such implementation. So next slide, please. So first, I want to start with a disclaimer that this is going to be an iterative process, simply due to the fact of what we're dealing with. This is a new area for many, and there are risks involved, and we're simply trying to mitigate some of these risks. We need to keep it in mind. We'll also be open-minded about that fact and make sure we're going through this iterative process all the way until we reach a sweet spot of value that we're happy with. So that being said, here I'm laying out 4 steps so we can reach data readiness. We start with the foundation, which is related to use cases. Then there are 2 typical exercises we need to go through when it comes to data. And last but not least, the prompt engineering part. So with the first one, the foundational part, next slide, please. The use cases. I think we tend to use the word use cases a lot, and I think it helps sometimes to take it a step back and understand that we have business objectives. And this is the beauty of this. If you don't have a business objective at the beginning, it might be difficult to know what you're trying to achieve. And if you have the business objective, the use cases somehow appear on their own when you're going through this process. So you start with a business objective. I'm trying to do like increase of retention. I'm trying to reduce churn. I'm trying to increase conversions. Once you set these objectives, it becomes easier for you to go into assessing what are the possible use cases. But you also can be held accountable at the end of the implementation. You want to assure that you're actually bringing value by bringing these use cases. So you start with the business objectives, then you can start designing possible use cases. In here, you can think about it sketching some sort of interaction. You're trying to craft the interaction between the customer and the agent. In simple terms, you're trying to have inputs and outputs designed and create possible scenarios. And once you have that in mind, you can start thinking about the channels. So we previously mentioned, well, it can be on the web chat, it can be on WhatsApp, it can be via email. So these are the channels in which the customer can communicate. But also you have certain channels where, let's say somebody is visiting a branch and the agent is designed for internal employee usages so he can better help the customer. So these are the channels. And the next step, you can start thinking about possible scenarios, and you can draft multiple samples of inputs and outputs. And what can really help to go into the data even further is simply map or per se pinpoint the customer on a map or a customer lifecycle map. Is it a new customer? Is it an existing customer? Great. If it's a new customer, then in which system are they new? Is it on the commerce platform because they have purchased something on our e-commerce website? Or is it on our marketing platform? Or is it on the CRM? So once you assess the customer lifecycle, you can also understand the data sources, because these platforms, when it comes to data, you can't access data by magic. They're usually some sort of connectors, whether they're out of the box or they're custom, but there are connectors usually. And that somehow dictates the interaction and how you can get the access to the data when you're interacting with the customer. So we have now went into basically the use cases or potential use cases. We can have like a similar outcome that I have laid out here. You can have like the goal, the role, the channels. We can even start thinking about the tone. What kind of tone I want the customer to be interacting with here. So with that in mind, we can go into the next step. So next slide, please. So in here, I started with the data compliance and security, and really it's not just about avoiding any fines, it's also reputational damage that can occur. We've seen many attempts of these malicious actors. So we want to make sure you're protecting your reputation and you're implementing certain guardrails. There have been mention of the Einstein trust layer. This is a close-up look on the features that compose this trust layer. Some of them help with these guardrails. For example, the toxicity detection. It puts basically a certain way of communication with the customer, or what are the boundaries in which they should be communicating with, putting them in their place in a way. But there are also other features, for example, data masking, which have been mentioned previously. This is an interesting feature. You can go through the data sources, which we have previously assessed in our previous step, and start going through the data points and say, okay, this is a sensitive data point, this is a PII, this is an internal knowledge, and so on. And then this is applied automatically on the prompt. So in here, you're going through this exercise, but you're making sure that you're following the compliance of your organization. And also, you can start thinking about guardrails, not just the features here, but what are the other logical things you need to implement. So does it make sense to ask the customer to log in before they ask information regarding a certain email? Maybe. So this is where we can go back to the previous step, say, okay, we missed this part here. Let's add this part of our interaction, part of our scenario, and make sure really we're just following basically standard rules that protects us and also the customer. So in here we also see certain parts about data retrieval and dynamic grounding. This is really, in other terms, how we insert data into the prompt. I'm going to talk about that a bit more later on, but this is in a way just a few things. These are the nitty gritty of the things and exercises we need to do to stay compliant and make sure everything is secure. So with that said, that in mind as well, go to the next slide, please. Yep, cool. So so in here we're trying to have a closer look into the data, and also I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that we live in an imperfect world, and in this imperfect world messy data exists. And just as humans like suffer from messy data, AI can also suffer from messy data. And when they do that, we call it AI hallucination. So you can think about it as a puzzle, and sometimes you have missing pieces of those puzzles. The only difference is that the AI can replace those missing pieces with infactual pieces, and this is what we call hallucination. And we're trying to minimize these things. So we try to look into the data to find inconsistencies. So for example, difference in price currency between multiple data objects, inconsistency in date formats. We try to see how the data is complete or incomplete in certain places. Then once we identify all of these, we're trying to see how are we going to remedy them. Are we going to remedy them at the source, or are we going to remedy them at the prompt? Again, I will mention that at the last step, but this is a good exercise to go through to understand basically your blind spots of data, really. And it's really crucial point, especially we're trying to make this a sort of automation. I like to call it a smart automation at a scale. It's dynamic, and we need to be handling all these unpredictable outcomes sometimes, and until we reach a certain place where we're happy with. So really, that's that. We're covering our blind spots, simply put. So okay, so with this done, the next step would be the prompt engineering. So this is really when things get interesting. We have a few ways we're going to handle the prompt engineering part. We're trying to do some sort of optimization here. We're trying to make sure the response is relevant to our organization, to our customer. We mentioned also a few things along the way to this point were related to security, related to data inconsistencies. This is where we start dealing with some of these problems, if not dealt at the source, right? So we deal with them with clear steps and instructions. We deal with them with examples, and we deal with them with injection of contextual data. My colleague Daniel mentioned RAG. Really, that's just the term of it. But you can think about it as it's relevant data for your organization that you can insert on the spot, so you can have a personalized response for your organization on the customer in that sense. So there are two types of data that you can use. One called structured and unstructured. I was trying to think of an analogy for this, and the best thing I can think of is structured data is like when you have an ID and all of your fellow citizens in the country have also an ID. So you can think about it as like the same placeholder for the name and last name is going to be the same for all the IDs in the country. So it's really easy to understand the structure. Unstructured data is more like when you have unpredictable things like a conversation on Teams or Slack, really. So it can be quite different, and that kind of data is called unstructured. So things like files, emails, chats, these could be used for internal knowledge. And then also structured data, there can be mainly within this context, things like your purchases, your CRM data, and really anything flattened in data perspective. So these are like two types of data, and they're being inserted at the prompt level. I mentioned defining clear steps and instructions. Sometimes it helps to break down complex tasks into simple tasks, and then within those simple tasks, we get the data needed for each step or each step of solving that task. And really, this is just a way to be more optimal in your response. And there are multiple ways you can insert these structured and unstructured data. So unstructured data, um, using like search index. There's multiple types of search indexes. Again, an example would be like when you go on your communications team and just search a certain keyword and you see the results. This is very similar. And for the structured data, like I mentioned, could be your purchase data. So you can think about it like searching, give me like the last 5 orders for that customer. There are a few ways this can be accomplished with Agentforce. So we can use maybe you've heard of the terms like Apex and Flow, but these are common ways to get this type of data. So in here, you need to also think the iterative process, that once you go into this step, you're going to figure out that something needs to be changed. Like what are the things you need to take as input? You need to start thinking of what can go wrong and what can actually occur at this process. But really, these 4 steps that I laid out, they are quite interconnected. I can go back and forth in any setup, and it all will make sense because they're still somehow connected with each other. But you're gonna reach a point where you're satisfied with this because the output is valid, right? And output makes sense for you, makes sense for what you're trying to achieve. So actually, which brings me to the next thing I want to mention. So where do we go from here? So next slide, please. So yeah, the question, where do we go from here? We went through all of this, what to do next? I think before going hot and heavy on any big implementation, it's good to use something that's been used in traditional marketing use cases. Not gonna reinvent the wheel. It's called A/B testing. I think it's good to validate what you're trying to achieve. It's good to start with maybe a cohort big enough to find out the problems of what you're building, but also small enough to not impact your business. So this is very important. But also, when you're doing this kind of testing, you can also go back to the original message, the business objective, and you can say, okay, am I bringing value? Am I actually increasing my conversions? Am I actually increasing retention? Do I need to have like an NPS score data added to this process so I can measure my success and actually I am going towards that goal? So you can think about testing from multiple perspectives. We can test like like how are we succeeding from a business objective. But you can also test the performance of the module itself. So there are out of the box audit logs. These are logs that show the inputs and the outputs, and you can simply go through them as well to try to optimize certain things within the response itself. So you can optimize the response, you can take a step back and try to optimize the whole scenario, but you can also see what you're bringing as value. Then you can also say, okay, I'm starting with the use case, which is like low effort, high value, and then later on move to more complex use cases. Perhaps I stumble upon some things, or I discover some information that helps me to shape the use cases that I plan to do. So really, this is a crucial point in my perspective before going big on something like this. So with that, we know the stage is set, we have the narrative, and now the production. So with that, I hand over to Steph.
Thank you very much, Noor, for explaining and covering this crucial milestone from any agent force project. You really need to follow these different steps to ensure that you will be satisfied with the outcome. And it's not the first time that we are supporting our client to do that. And what we wanted to explain is also a little bit our learning. So what did we learn from the different projects? So yes, so we develop our own consultancy model that you might be already familiar with. So the make it work, make it better, and make it bigger. So these 3 phases are integral to our implementation approach. We always place a significant, time and emphasis on, on the consulting part to define these use cases. As Noor explained, they are the one that will give the vision and the direction to the project. So it's really a crucial step, and it's important that we are always align on this one, because it will also define the type of data we will need and determine the amount of effort required to deliver the use case effectively. To connect again with what was said before, if we are talking about structured data, it's gonna be a bit easier, of course, to structure it and to model it. But if we talk about unstructured, then we will have a lot of more heavy work to do, heavy lift, and that's where it's important to understand exactly what we want to do with the technology, so then we can prepare the data to empower it. So once the project is up and running and as stabilized, we move to the transition phase. So this phase is a handover, is like our handover phase, where we're gonna take all the parts of the project and basically hand it over to the client stakeholders, but we will also enable them and train them, because the idea is really that there is a smooth transition and that we empower our client to manage the project independently. So through that process, we also ensure that we collect feedback and learnings from our project team and client to continuously improve our implementation model, our approach. So one solution or one component of this approach that we developed is our Salesforce Data Cloud seamless data preparation piece. So what it is, so basically through this implementation process, we find out that we could simplify the data preparation, so the data readiness we were discussing before, and that we could eliminate the need for constant involvement from data engineering teams. How did we manage to do that? We basically created a UI, a solution that will bring the data model together. So it will centralize all the data modeling piece of work that can be really time consuming, especially if you have to do it in different data sources to meaning you're gonna have to redo every time, rebuild the data model. So with this solution, you basically can, accelerate this process by predefining some data model, by, registering the way you want to map things. So it will significantly, speed up the implementation part, especially on the data modeling component, which usually can be time consuming. So it's not like an additional tool, it's more like an element, a component of our approach and how we want to support our client to get a quicker return on investment on their technology. So that's it. Let's do a little wrap up, because there was a lot of elements that were mentioned and that were really interesting, and also with different level of technicality. And then we will answer your questions. So we began today journey by exploring how the technology behind Agentforce works. So some key concepts such as LLM, RAG, and how they are used responsibly. Then we look at how practically we can empower the Agentforce with the data cloud technology, and also how we can by working on the use cases, we will also understand which kind of data we will need to push into the platform. So that was also a key step. And when we talk about data privacy and security, it is a central element for any project. So it's an important one, really important one. But none of that could work if we also don't follow certain steps, such as the data readiness step that Noor covered and explained that to make this data accessible, compliant, clean, and complete, there are different milestones that we basically will help you to go through. And once it's live, it's just the beginning. Then we want to optimize and improve the result. And this is an iterative approach. And this is where as well we can support and bring some learning also from other projects. So yeah, we look at all these different elements, and we also share at the end with you our learning. So what we learned from these different projects that we deliver, and how when we see an opportunity to speed up the implementation or to improve some element, we are even able to create some tools or solution of our own. So I hope this was interesting, that you learn quite a few things. It was really nice to prepare this webinar, and now I will see if we have some questions maybe in the chat. So I will try to open the chat, and I will give a little bit of time if you have any question. If we didn't cover maybe enough one of the topics, please take the opportunity to ask us some questions. I see already one. So I see, okay, what are the main caveats of AI implementation project? So that's a really good question. I think we saw that, of course, the AI component, or the AI project brings some new concept, some new technology that can be a bit overwhelming at the start, but it is about data and it is about technology. So some of the caveats are quite similar to other projects that you might have around data. So you have to make sure that you have high quality data, you have a robust data governance, that also, yeah, you are not bringing data quality that is poor and that could lead to inaccurate or biased models. So it's, again, the governance is a key element, and it's always a little bit of a challenge to apply it sometimes, but we have experience, we have teams that are used to deliver such consulting. It's also essential to well define the objectives. So what we were discussing before about the use cases, that will define like the strategic priority of this project, because it's, even though sometimes the message is, oh, with AI it's plug and play and it's easy, there are I wouldn't say hidden costs, but there are costs related to this kind of project. Of course, first you will have the some piece of technology, all the time you're going to spend to prepare this data is also something to take in consideration. So it is a project that you need to prepare well if you want to lower as much as possible this kind of cost. And yeah, like every project, you can always make it better, like we do it through our model. So it's always like a continuous monitoring, analysis, and optimization of the outcomes. And this is really key to get some learning from your experience, because your experience might be a little bit different than another client. So that's also something that is going to be specific to you, and it's important to capture it, so then you can build on this foundation and then improve it by the time. So yes,
To add
by
like,
understanding these different caveats, you can prepare well the projects. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
yeah, just wanted to add something, Steph, regarding like the cost, because it really just it's like a very important key to measure the ROI because when you talk about cost, you want to make sure you're bringing something that you can present to your organization in terms of value. So that's why I just wanted to add this part here. Also, starting small and making it bigger with time, not just going big on the investment, but making sure you're smart about it, approaching it strategically. So that's that. I interrupted you, man. So.
No. It's a really good addition, and you are completely right. That's also why, as soon as you can deliver already a solution, that's where you can potentially start generating some growth, and that's where we want to help our client to get to that point as quick as possible. I don't know, Daniel, if you have
Yes, I
any
have a
addition as
question.
well. Ah, mhm.
Not on your point, but I have a question that I want to answer. So before I
Ah,
jump out, yeah.
please go. Yeah.
Okay, so we've received a question about we are building an LLM which we will be able to read the SEC filings of companies that are financial data publicly traded. Well, publicly traded companies they have to provide with cash flow statements, income statements, etc. So here I become technical. Training or creating an LLM is very expensive, and it depends a lot on the use case. But I think that if someone wants to leverage that information in the context of AI, instead of creating a new model, what they would have to do is understand how to fit that information to an existing model. So if you have SEC filings and you say that they are structured data, you would have to understand what's the use case and understand when to feed what kind of information for one specific request. Or if this information is unstructured, then you would have to prepare the RAG. That is what I spoke about before. Unstructured information, like create, it's called vector database, that the RAG can use semantically to search for the important information and then feed it to the LLM and then use it, right? So in terms of hints that I can give you to build this LLM or to, it's not training, it's like to prepare it. Think of the use cases that you want to cover with this LLM that can read these SEC filings and then understand what is the best way to feed it to it. Like if it is a structured data, you can do something like what Agentforce is doing, that is like injecting the information of the structured database directly into the prompt because that you can program and is systematic. Or if you see that it's unstructured and let's say that the information that you care for one specific request is semantic, then you prepare a RAG database. So you configure RAG for your use case. So it's a very blurry answer for you, but sorry, it depends on the use case again, and depends on how the information is structured. But
I
yeah,
don't see the. I think there is.
because
It's a good
it's
segue
assigned
to
to
one
me.
of the question. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So that was following on this question actually. So that's perfect. Yeah.
Then go ahead because that would be my answer. But if the person that sent the question wants to follow up, please throw another question. I will follow up.
Yes, because we have. You'll see on our last slide there. You'll be able to reach out to us. I think we don't have more question. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to us if if you want to get a bit more learning about the project we are working on or the one that we delivered. Of course, without revealing sensitive data. But no, joke apart, we want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Noor. Thank you, Daniel and Francesca team as well for the support in preparing this presentation. You can always reach out to us as mentioned, or via email, as you can see on this slide, or through LinkedIn. And we are looking forward to working with you on a Agentforce transformation project. So yeah, stay tuned and see you soon, hopefully.